My CEO husband wants to deduct my entire salary and give it to his assistant as compensation for emotional distress. So I quit immediately. My CEO fiancé said the company is struggling financially and cut my salary by half. But then I saw his assistant flaunting it on social media. My boss not only gave me a raise but also bought me a luxury car to make sure I don't get tired at work. How thoughtful. In the photo, she and her fiancé are standing in front of their brand new $1 million car, looking happy and in love. I paused for a moment and gave it a like. That evening, my fiancé called an emergency meeting, using the excuse that I had disrupted company morale to deduct my entire month's salary and compensate the assistant for emotional distress. Everyone looked at me with sympathy, expecting me to lose my temper and cause a scene. But I simply packed up my belongings at my desk and handed in my resignation letter. Bullying a colleague by deducting their salary isn't enough. I'm resigning on my own accord. Before I could finish speaking, Zoe Han, the junior assistant, spoke up first. Lucy Shaw, how could you resign over such a trivial matter? You've been with the company for so long, and CEO Miller has always been so kind to you. Resigning at this critical moment will make everyone look bad. CEO Miller, please come and persuade Lucy Shaw. Lucas Miller might have been trying to persuade me earlier, but after hearing Zoe Han's words, he grew even angrier. What's there to persuade? If she wants to leave, let her go. I've done nothing wrong, and I'm not afraid of what anyone says. He immediately took my resignation letter, signed it, and threw it in my face. The surrounding colleagues all looked at me, waiting to see what would happen next. But I didn't argue like I used to. Instead, I remained calm, picked up the resignation form from the ground, and handed it back. I finished handing over my work and left. No need to hand over anything. If you want to leave, leave now. Lucas Miller pointed to the door, as if he had thought of something, and coldly added, there will be no compensation for resigning. Seeing this, some colleagues who were on good terms with me urged me to apologize and not act impulsively. They all knew that this company was one I had helped Lucas Miller build from the ground up. Back then, when the company was short on funds, I drank until I vomited blood to secure investments. When projects were incomplete, I led the team in pulling all-nighters for 3 days straight. I poured countless hours of effort and emotion into every aspect of the business. Leaving now would mean giving up everything, but my mind was made up. I thanked them, packed my things, and turned to leave. Before leaving, I clearly saw a complex expression flicker in Lucas Miller's eyes. I knew he thought I wouldn't leave. In the past, we had also had many conflicts over Zoe Han. The most severe incident was when Lucas Miller publicly scolded me and gave her my entire year's bonus. I was so angry that I threatened to quit. But when it came time to leave, I held back, went back to him as if nothing had happened, and continued working as usual, pretending the incident never occurred. He thought I would convince myself to stay this time as well. But he didn't know that my patience with him had finally reached its limit. Just as I stepped out of the company, a text message came in. I opened it and saw it was a transfer from a friend. When Lucas Miller said the company was struggling and wanted to cut my salary that morning, my first thought was that he must be under a lot of pressure. So I immediately contacted a friend to borrow 500,000 yuan. I had intended to give it to him, but accidentally saw Zoe Han's WeChat post. Only then did I realize Lucas Miller's true intentions. But at that moment, I was surprisingly calm, no sadness, no jealousy. Perhaps because it had happened too many times. Lucas Miller had done so many ridiculous things for Zoe Han that I couldn't even tell anymore whether his girlfriend was me or Zoe Han. I returned the money to my friend, thanked her, and walked to the garage. I found the old beat-up car I'd driven for 10 years, with the paint chipped off in several places. Parked next to it was a brand new Porsche, the one Lucas Miller had just given to Zoe Han today. There were plenty of empty spots in the garage, but she chose to park there. It was clearly a provocation. I've been with Lucas Miller for 10 years. Yet I'm not as important to him as Zoe Hahn, who's only been working there for 10 months. I laughed sarcastically. Without hesitation, I stepped on the gas and left the company I'd worked at for years. Just as I drove out of the company gate, I was rear-ended. I got out of the car and saw Lucas Miller and Zoe Hahn getting out of the car behind me. "Lucy Shaw, why did you brake so suddenly?" I didn't have time to react, Zoe Hahn said, walking up to her car and looking at the dented front with concern. What a pity. This was carefully selected by CEO Miller. Lucas Miller's expression grew even darker. "Lucy Shaw, I saw you staring at Zoe's car in the garage earlier. Tell me the truth, were you doing that on purpose? Did you know Zoe was behind you and intentionally brake suddenly to get back at her?" I almost laughed out loud. Here we go again. Blame me without even trying to figure out what really happened. Zoe Hahn sighed. Never mind, CEO Miller. Let's not blame Lucy Shaw. She lost her job because of me. It's only natural she's angry with me. In the end, it's all my fault. If only I had been more careful. Saying this, she sighed regretfully. It was clearly an act. But Lucas Miller didn't notice, rubbing her shoulders tenderly and saying, "It's not your fault. Don't take everything upon yourself." After saying that, he tapped my forehead firmly. "Lucy Shaw, can't you learn from Zoe? Everyone knows how to be humble. You've been working here for so many years, yet you're still so petty and immature." I stumbled from his push, then realized how ridiculous it was. Over the past year, it's been Zoe Hahn constantly taking credit for my work, scheming to shift blame onto me. And now she's the one being humble and responsible, while I'm the selfish, immature one. Knowing that continuing the conversation would be pointless, I didn't bother to say anything else and turned to leave. Lucas Miller stopped me again. I thought he was going to keep defending Zoe Hahn, but to my surprise, he pulled me aside. He spoke earnestly. "Lucy Shaw, I had high expectations for you, which is why I was so strict. Can't you understand my good intentions?" Hearing his gentle words, I was still confused. But soon, I understood his true intentions. Lucas Miller patted my shoulder. "I'll withdraw the resignation request. Think it over and apologize to Zoe. Additionally, you're fully at fault for the rear-end collision. Whatever you owe, transfer it to Zoe." I snapped out of it. I looked up at Zoe Hahn. She must have already known what Lucas Miller was saying. Her face was filled with smugness as she rolled her eyes at me in a taunting manner. I scoffed. "I won't pay. Let's investigate who was at fault for the rear-end collision. If necessary, we'll call the police. I have to go now." I turned and left. Lucas Miller followed behind with a grim expression. His voice cold. "I've given you a chance. Don't regret this." Regret? I won't regret it. I got back into the car and sent a message to my friend. "I quit my job. I can start working at your company tomorrow." My friend called back in less than half a second, her voice filled with surprise. "Are you serious?" She sounded a bit unsure. "What about Lucas Miller?" My friend and Lucas Miller had started their businesses at the same time. Compared to Lucas Miller, who had started from scratch, my friend had more resources and better benefits. My friend was desperately in need of talented technical staff, so she offered me a higher stake in the company and a larger share of profits, hoping I would join them. Even after learning about my relationship with Lucas Miller, she made an exception and offered me a part-time position. But for Lucas Miller's sake, I refused without hesitation. When I was at my lowest point, lying in the snow nearly freezing to death, it was Lucas Miller who dragged me into the police station and saved my life. I am deeply grateful to him. So I abandoned everything and dedicated myself entirely to my career, doing everything in my power to help Lucas Miller's company grow step by step. But now it seems like he doesn't care at all. And after all these years, no matter how you calculate it, it's more than enough to repay his kindness. I don't need to keep sacrificing myself anymore. No. I can decide for myself. After chatting with a friend for a while and confirming the time to sign the contract, I drove home to pack my things. Although I bought this house outright, it's filled with memories of Lucas Miller, and I no longer plan to stay here. I started by cleaning under the bed and found many sketches scattered there. The boy in the drawings was smiling, looking melancholy, peeling an apple, and applying makeup in front of a mirror. These were all Lucas Miller. Every expression on his face was so lively and full of life. I had drawn them all for him. He also loved the sketches I drew of him, treating each one like a precious treasure, framing them and keeping them safely stored away. But ever since Zoe Han appeared, he started to grow impatient, dismissing drawing as old-fashioned and a waste of time, preferring to take photos with a camera instead. He no longer liked me drawing him. Even these drawings were carelessly tossed under the bed. The paper yellowed and faded, the figures on them long since faded away. I sighed bitterly. I threw them into the bathroom sink and lit a corner. The flames consumed the drawings completely, leaving only a handful of ashes. Just like our love, which had been burned to ashes without us even noticing. After doing this, I cleared out everything else I could throw away. I didn't have much, but the room still felt cold and spacious. I flopped onto the sofa and picked up my phone to look for an apartment near my friend's company. But as soon as I opened it, I saw that Zoe Han had posted a photo in the company group chat. It was a photo of her and Lucas Miller. The background was an arcade, with Zoe Han holding a bunch of stuffed animals and smiling at the camera. Lucas Miller stood beside her, looking at her smile with a doting and satisfied expression. I hadn't seen him smile like that in a long time. I had once taken him to an arcade before, but as soon as we walked in and exchanged game tokens, he turned around and left, dismissing me as childish and saying he was too busy to waste time on such a boring activity. He didn't have time for me. Yet he had time for Zoe Han. I scoffed. He wasn't dismissing me as childish, he was just dismissing me. In the group chat, many colleagues were also showering Zoe Han with compliments, praising her beauty and calling her a goddess. Some even praised the photographer's skills, and one joked whether the two were about to get engaged. In reality, they all knew I was Lucas Miller's girlfriend. But they dared to make such jokes because Lucas Miller had never hidden his ambiguous relationship with Zoe Han at work. In the past, I would have gotten angry and called Lucas Miller to tell him to mind his manners. But now, I felt surprisingly calm. I pretended not to notice and continued with my own business. Little did I know that 2 minutes later, when I checked again, several messages had been deleted from the group chat, including the photo Zoe Han had originally posted. I assumed Lucas Miller would be coming home late again. But before long, he walked into the living room with Zoe Han on the phone, his expression gentle. When he saw me, his face flashed a moment of guilt before darkening. He deliberately walked past me and pushed open the bedroom door. I knew he was waiting for me to comfort him. Every time we had an argument at work, I would go out of my way to apologize to him and beg for his forgiveness. Even if he was the one at fault, I would force myself to admit it. In the past, I thought it was my duty, whether out of gratitude or to maintain this relationship, to comfort him. But now I just find it boring. I lowered my head and continued with what I was doing. Not long after, he emerged from the room with a gloomy expression. "Did you see the message in the group chat?" "What message?" I asked, feigning ignorance. Without looking up, I could sense he seemed to relax. "Nothing. Just work-related." I sent it to the wrong group. I found it amusing but didn't bother to call him out on it. I just wondered how much else he was hiding from me about his relationship with Zoe Han. Zoe's car is fixed. Have you fixed yours? Seeing my silence, Lucas Miller spoke again. I knew this was his way of giving me an out. In the past, I would have already felt he had forgiven me and gone out of my way to please him. But now, I didn't even look up and said indifferently, "It's just an old car. There's nothing worth fixing." Lucas Miller frowned. "What do you mean by that?" I looked up at him in confusion, not understanding what he was unhappy about. This car had been scratched many times before, and when I mentioned fixing it, he had said the same thing earlier. I thought he was going to get angry again, but instead, he sighed. "I know you're still upset about the company matters, but Zoe has been doing a great job lately. I gave her the car to keep her as a valuable employee." Hearing him say that, I almost laughed. Zoe Han was hired by Lucas Miller on a special exception, and her work performance was abysmal. She made so many mistakes that even 10 hands wouldn't be enough to count them all. From small things like ordering plain water for the client during a meeting and ordering milk tea for herself, to big mistakes like sending the bottom line price list to the partner company instead of the quotation, causing the company to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Keeping her around is worse than keeping a dog. If I didn't know the company's situation, I might have believed Lucas Miller. I didn't say anything, and Lucas Miller continued, "You're my girlfriend. Once we get married, the company will be yours. Why are you so fixated on the salary? Why are you arguing with her over such a small amount?" Lucy Shaw. "Everything I've done is for the company. I don't want the other colleagues to think I'm favoring you. I know deep down that these are just excuses. Everyone in the company knows how Lucas Miller treats me and Zoe Han. A project I worked on for 3 days. He suddenly decided to hand it over to Zoe Han, who just made a PowerPoint presentation and claimed it as her own work. I spent days negotiating with a client, and just as we were about to sign the contract, he used my name to take Zoe Han out to dinner with the client, and the contract ended up being secured by Zoe Han. There are countless similar incidents. Over time, other colleagues have come to believe that Lucas Miller favors Zoe Han. Some even think Lucas Miller doesn't like me. And as a result, I've endured a lot of cold shoulders and bullying at work. He saw it all but pretended not to notice. I didn't want to explain, anyway. He'd just say I was making excuses. "Oh," I replied indifferently, "you don't need to tell me this. I'm no longer associated with the company. Do whatever you think is best." Lucas Miller remained silent. Finally, he sighed and hugged me from behind. "Actually, I have my own reasons. I want you to take some time off to rest and think about our wedding. When do you plan to get married?" He asked me with a smile, but I had already mentioned marriage many times before, and every time, he complained that marriage would take away his freedom and brushed it off, saying we'd talk about it later. Every time we argued and things got unpleasant, he would use marriage to comfort me. Sometimes, I felt like I wasn't his girlfriend at all, but more like a dog being toyed with. I didn't say anything. Lucas Miller, like he was teasing a dog, ruffled my hair. "Don't be angry. Can you smile?" As he spoke, he leaned in toward me as if deliberately trying to please me. I caught the scent of Zoe Han's perfume on him again. My stomach churned, and I pushed him away, wrinkling my nose in disgust. I pulled out a wet tissue and wiped my fingers. Lucas Miller stood there frozen. "You're disgusted by me? I have something to do later, so I'm going to change first," I said softly, then turned to go back to my room. Lucas Miller tried to follow, but I closed the door and locked it without hesitation. "Fine. Lucy Shaw. Don't regret this." Lucas Miller seemed genuinely angry. After uttering those harsh words, he kicked the door hard and stormed off. When I came out of the room, the living room was empty. In the company group chat, Lucas Miller sent a message inviting everyone to dinner and asking who wanted to join. Everyone remained silent. Only Zoe Han sent 3 happy emojis. I knew Lucas Miller was intentionally trying to provoke me. This has happened many times before. And it's always the same. None of the other colleagues want to join. Only Zoe Han is enthusiastic. In the past, I would have been jealous and gone after him, only to be mocked by them. Now, I don't care. I changed my clothes, went to check out the apartment I wanted to rent, confirmed everything was okay, and paid the deposit. I then contacted the real estate agent to ask them to sell my current house. However, although I bought this house and handled all the renovations myself, the property deed still has Lucas Miller's name on it. At the time, Lucas Miller and I didn't have much money combined. So to give him a sense of security, I used all my savings to buy this house. Now that the company has grown to this size, I guess this house isn't even worth Lucas Miller's attention anymore. The real estate agent informed me that if the house is sold, Lucas Miller must be present. If he is unavailable, a power of attorney must be signed. I had no choice but to message him again. However, after sending the message, a red exclamation mark appeared in the chat window. He had blocked me. This has happened before. Whenever things escalate to an irreconcilable point, Lucas Miller would angrily block me. I worry about his safety. So sometimes I borrow someone else's phone and humbly call him, begging him to add me back. But he answers the phone with a condescending tone, asking if I've realized my mistake. Thinking back now, the lies I told him just to appease him are countless. After some thought, I decided to call him again. I'll come back tonight. There's something I need to discuss with you. What is it? I'm busy. Lucas Miller's voice was icy. I bit my lip. Let's talk about it when I get back. Lucas Miller snorted coldly. You pushed me away and now you want me to come back? Lucy Shaw. Do I owe you something? Is this how you apologize to me? Have I been too good to you lately? Making you forget how to apologize? Hearing his mocking tone, I spoke softly as usual. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Anyway, I've already apologized so many times against my will. What's one more? Besides, this apology got me a house. Even if the house is mine. If Lucas Miller really wants to cause trouble and refuses to sign, I can't sell it. Even with proof of payment, I'd still have to go to court. Lucas Miller can afford to make a scene, but I can't. Sure enough, after hearing my apology, Lucas Miller's tone softened slightly, and he graciously said, "Just wait." Then he hung up the phone. My heart remained calm. I listed the house on the website and lowered the price significantly to sell it as soon as possible. After doing all this, I contacted my friend and signed the contract. My friend was extremely excited, repeatedly asking me if I was dreaming, and even went out of his way to throw a celebratory banquet for me. I had originally planned to go home early, but upon second thought, Lucas Miller didn't know when he'd be back, and going home too early wouldn't accomplish anything. So I agreed to stay. After drinking for a while, when I went to the restroom, I heard a familiar voice coming from the adjacent private room. I instinctively stopped in my tracks. Through the slightly open door, I saw Zoe Han snuggled up against Lucas Miller. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Lucas Miller's previously cold expression softened into a smile. Taking advantage of the moment, Zoe Han quickly leaned down and kissed him on the lips. Lucas Miller froze for a moment but didn't push her away. CEO Miller, when did you and Lucy Shaw break up? I can't wait to be with you. Do you know how sad I am every day when I see you with her? Do you still like Lucy Shaw more? Zoe Han said tearfully. Lucas Miller moved his lips as if he wanted to say something. Finally, he hugged Zoe Han from behind and patted her back gently, as if comforting a child. How could she ever compare to you in my heart? It's just that the company has grown so large now. If we break up with her and be together, I'm afraid people will talk. And it might affect you negatively. Let's wait a little longer. It won't be too long. So that's how it is. I knew CEO Miller loved me the most. The two of them cuddled closely, looking just like a couple. I snorted derisively and didn't watch anymore. Back in the private room, after drinking a few more glasses of wine, everyone reminisced about the past until the early hours of the morning. As we entered the underground garage, my friend suddenly pulled me to a top-of-the-line Porsche and asked if I liked it. I nodded, unsure of what she meant. I thought it was her new car, and I was about to compliment her. But she suddenly shoved a set of car keys into my hand. It's for you. She winked at me. You've been driving that car for so many years. It's time to upgrade. Here. Take this new one. Before I could refuse, she seemed to know what I was going to say and said directly, I heard that Lucas Miller gave cars to the new hires at your company. Even with her terrible skills, she can drive a luxury car. You can't be worse than her. Speaking of which, I've seen the work that new hire does. Every time it's different. Clearly copied. I have no idea how she managed to stay at the company. Perhaps because she had been drinking. My friend spoke without restraint, ranting to me about Zoe Hahn. I remained silent. What she said was true. Those things were all done by me and the other colleagues in my team. Almost every time. Just as we were about to finish, Lucas Miller would ask us to hand it over to Zoe Hahn. That's why Zoe Hahn's style is always different. Even someone not in the company can see the truth. But Lucas Miller just doesn't get it. I tried to refuse. But my friend pretended to be angry. This isn't for you. It'll be deducted from your future wages. You can't waste my good intentions. I couldn't help but laugh. The price of that car, if they really deducted it from my salary, it would take me years to pay it off. Knowing it was just an excuse, I didn't refuse and thanked her. After chatting with my friend for a while, we both called for a ride and went home. I thought Lucas Miller wouldn't be back yet at this time. But when I opened the door, I saw Lucas Miller already sitting on the sofa in the living room. Where were you? We were supposed to meet. Do you know how long I waited? As soon as I walked in, Lucas Miller angrily asked me. I was a bit surprised. Usually, when he went out with Zoe Hahn, they wouldn't come back until 3 or 4 in the morning. Coming back so early was indeed unusual. However, as I thought about it, the image of him and Zoe Hahn embracing each other in the hotel flashed before my eyes again. I couldn't help but feel a wave of nausea. I went out to dinner with a friend. I said softly, walking into the living room and taking out the power of attorney from my bag. Just as I took a few steps, Lucas Miller suddenly stopped me. Furrowing his brows, did you drink again? Didn't I tell you not to drink when I'm not around? I couldn't help but snort. What he meant was that I could only drink when I was entertaining him. I didn't say anything. Lucas Miller seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled, looking a bit smug. You're still upset about me going out with Zoe Hahn, aren't you? You don't want me to go out to dinner with her alone. Just say so. Why drink so much? You're overthinking it. My drinking has nothing to do with you. I leaned on the chair and handed him the property sale agreement. Take a look at this. Seeing what was handed to him, Lucas Miller raised his eyebrows, his tone growing more smug. What's this? A guarantee? Let me tell you up front. It's too late to apologize now. I'm still very angry with you over what happened this afternoon. Don't think you can use this little trick to make me forgive you. Seeing his smug expression, I found it amusing. Indeed. Back when I kept making him angry and he refused to forgive me, I had written a guarantee letter by hand to win his favor. Now that I think about it, while he was certainly at fault, Back then, I had clearly handed over my self-respect for him to trample on. At least, it won't happen again. It's not a guarantee letter, it's a surprise, I said softly. Upon hearing this, Lucas Miller raised an eyebrow, just about to open it, when his phone rang. Seeing the caller ID, his dark eyes lit up. Wait a moment. I need to take this call. Saying this, Lucas Miller reached out and answered the call. CEO Miller. I accidentally hit someone while driving. What should I do? I'm so scared. Zoe Hahn's voice sounded distressed through the receiver. Lucas Miller's expression grew anxious. Send me your location. I'll come over right away. After speaking, he stood up to leave, ignoring me. I stepped in front of him and handed him the document directly, speaking succinctly. Handle my matter first. I'll talk to you later. This document needs to be signed urgently. Lucas Miller paused, looked up at me, and sighed. Lucy Shaw, can't you show some empathy? Her situation is more urgent than yours. The way you're acting right now is really unprofessional. I found it somewhat amusing. I'm unprofessional. But what about Zoe Hahn driving while intoxicated? But I didn't feel like arguing with him. I simply handed him the power of attorney and didn't take it back. Lucas Miller didn't say anything else. He opened the document. But before he could look at it, Zoe Hahn's screams came through the phone again. How could you hit her? CEO Miller. Don't worry. I'll be right there. He told Zoe Hahn to stay calm. But Lucas Miller was clearly more anxious than she was. He didn't even look at the contents. Flipping quickly to the end, signing his name hastily, and then striding out the door. Watching his frantic back, I couldn't help but ask, aren't you going to look at what you signed? What's there to see? The surprises you brought are just a few small contracts. As long as you're sure the terms are okay, that's all that matters. With that, he walked out the door without looking back. I couldn't help but find it amusing. In the past, I would go out of my way to make him happy by secretly negotiating deals behind his back. At first, he would be delighted. But as the company grew larger, he began to look down on these small companies that had risen to prominence through hard work. Just like him. Before signing any contract, he would meticulously review the terms multiple times to ensure there were no oversights. Now, because he was worried about Zoe Hahn, he didn't even bother to read what he was signing. But it's better this way, it saves a lot of trouble. That night, Lucas Miller didn't come back. Zoe Hahn, however, sent me many messages. Lucy Shaw, I know you saw everything outside the private room. But you should also know that Lucas Honey's heart is with me. He'll rush to find me the moment I call. You should just back off early and save everyone the embarrassment. I couldn't help but snort in derision. It seems Zoe Hahn has shown her true colors. I know that even if I send the chat logs to Lucas Miller, it won't make a difference. He spoils Zoe Hahn, and even if he sees the provocation, he'll just think I'm trying to drive a wedge between them. But I'm not the type to ignore her repeated provocations. Congratulations. But if Lucas Miller ever grows tired of you, remember to be sensible and step aside on your own. I know this statement isn't very threatening, but I'm sure it must have stung Zoe Hahn. Sure enough, as soon as I sent the message, she fell silent. I went to bed early and sent the agency the contract signed by Lucas Miller the next morning. Someone came to view the house that afternoon. She was satisfied with the location, layout, and price of the house, but she was suspicious about why I was in such a hurry to sell it. Such a nice house. Why sell it at such a low price? Is there something wrong with it? She was cautious. I briefly explained that it was a new house I had bought earlier, but my engagement with my fiancé had been cancelled. She understood. The courtyard and the decor clearly reflected a taste that would appeal to a man. Selling it was for the best, it would prevent me from dwelling on the past. I didn't say anything. Lucas Miller was very particular about the house. It took me 3 months and over 100 viewings to find one that met his standards. Even the interior design was done according to his preferences. It was only then that I realized that, over the past few years, my life had revolved entirely around him. The client was decisive. After viewing the house, she agreed to sign the contract that evening and scheduled the handover for 2 days later. Coincidentally, I was also leaving in 2 days. After signing the contract and returning home, I saw a pair of women's high heels by the door as soon as I entered. The pair of slippers I usually wore at home was also gone. Seeing this, I already had my suspicions. I took off the disposable slippers and walked inside. As soon as I entered, I heard Zoe Hahn's voice. "CEO Miller, what you're doing is wrong. Let me teach you." I walked to the kitchen door and saw the two of them standing at the kitchen sink. Zoe Hahn had her arms around Lucas Miller, holding his hands, looking very intimate. Zoe Hahn was wearing my pajamas and my slippers, looking every bit the mistress of the house. Lucas Miller was also wearing matching clothes, showing no discomfort at her closeness. They seemed to be getting along very well. They must have been talking about something funny, as they even laughed out loud. But usually, if I get even a little close to him, he feels uncomfortable. He told me he's not comfortable around the opposite sex. But now it seems like he's not comfortable around me. I couldn't help but snort. At that moment, Lucas Miller turned around for some reason and saw me. He paused for a second, then instinctively pushed Zoe Hahn away, looking a bit guilty. "Why did you come back now?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but find it amusing. Now it seemed like I was the one at fault. "Sorry, Lucy Shaw. I was just teaching CEO Miller how to wash vegetables. Don't misunderstand." She said this, but the look in her eyes was filled with triumph and curiosity. It was as if she couldn't wait to see me break down and get jealous. In the past, I would have probably gotten angry again, had a big fight with Lucas Miller, and insisted on kicking Zoe Hahn out. But I had grown accustomed to it. And besides, I was about to leave anyway. The house had already been sold, and the deposit was in the account. I simply didn't feel like bothering with it. "You guys go ahead. I'll head inside first," I said calmly, then started walking toward the bedroom. Zoe Hahn paused, her expression puzzled, seemingly unsure of my reaction. Lucas Miller had probably already braced himself for my anger. But seeing how calm I was, his tone grew uneasy. He even went out of his way to explain. "It's Zoe's birthday today, and she wanted to celebrate with us. So I brought her along." In the past, he wouldn't have said so much. He would have just rolled his eyes at me and coldly said, "If you don't like it, get out." I mocked him inwardly. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh. I didn't even care that he was explaining himself to me. But I should laugh because he couldn't even remember my birthday. Yet he went out of his way to celebrate Zoe Hahn's birthday. "Have a good time," I said softly before entering the bedroom. My belongings were mostly packed. The items I didn't use often had been moved to my new rental apartment. The only things left in the room were some daily clothes and books. I was considering whether to finish packing today when the door suddenly opened. Zoe Hahn walked in, holding a small piece of cake. She casually glanced around the room and burst into laughter. "The room looks much emptier than when I last came here. It seems you've listened and are ready to move out." I ignored her. I lowered my head and continued chatting with my friends on my phone about moving. Noticing that she was being ignored, Zoe Hahn's face turned a shade darker, and she took a few steps toward me. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" I glanced at her and sneered. "Why are you so concerned? You can't move in any way." "You." A simple sentence, But I didn't know what had offended her. Her expression darkened instantly, and she reached out to grab my collar. Before I could react, footsteps suddenly sounded at the door. Zoe Han dropped the cake on the floor. She screamed and fell to the ground. "Zoe! What's wrong?" Lucas Miller burst in, shoving me aside and quickly helping her up. I stumbled back a few steps, shards of broken ceramic piercing through my slippers and into my heels, the wounds quickly oozing bright red blood. But Lucas Miller seemed oblivious, only looking at the white scratch marks on Zoe Han's hand with concern. "There's not even any blood." "I'm sorry, CEO Miller. I made Lucy Shaw angry again. I just wanted everyone to have some cake for my birthday, so I brought Lucy Shaw a piece. But I didn't expect she wouldn't like it." Zoe Han looked at Lucas Miller with reddened eyes, looking completely lost and helpless. If I weren't the one involved, I might have believed her too. But I've never said I don't like cake. On the contrary, maybe because I rarely get the chance to eat birthday cake, I really love it. Every time my birthday comes around, I keep talking about it. Lucas Miller even mocked me before, saying that if I like cake so much, what will I do if I get fat and round in the future? But with Zoe Han around, Lucas Miller clearly forgot my preferences. He pointed at me angrily and said, "If you don't like it, can you just throw plates and push people around?" "Lucy Shaw, I thought you had learned your lesson, but it turns out you're still the same as before. Apologize to Zoe right now. Or else. You're so jealous. I don't dare keep you. Let's just break up." He glared at me, his angry expression making me laugh. I couldn't help but recall the words I overheard outside the private room that day, back when we were fighting the most. He had also threatened to break up with me, but I couldn't bear to let him go. Every time, I would be the first to try to talk him out of it, saying nice things. And once I even humbled myself and knelt down to beg him, because I thought breaking up wasn't what he truly wanted, it was just his trump card. The way he gave me an out. It wasn't until later that I realized he had probably already decided to break up with me long ago, which is why he kept bringing it up all the time. But it's fine. I had already planned to break up anyway. Even if he didn't bring it up now, I would have. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Lucas Miller thought I was scared and softened his tone. "You've been acting mysterious these past few days. Are you preparing for the wedding? I know you don't want to break up either. Just apologize to Zoe." Before Lucas Miller could finish, I interrupted him in a calm voice. "No. I agree to break up." Lucas Miller's smiling face froze, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. "What did you say? Aren't you the one who wanted to break up?" "I agree." My tone was calm. I thought he would be relieved that I agreed to divorce him. But to my surprise, I couldn't detect any joy in his tone. Only shock and anger. "Lucy Shaw, have you lost your mind? You want to break up with me over such a trivial matter?" He stared at me with wide eyes. "I don't understand. Wasn't breaking up what he wanted? Why was he acting this way after I agreed?" Zoe Han, who was standing nearby, seemed puzzled as well. She gently tugged at his sleeve. "CEO Miller, it was Lucy Shaw who initiated the breakup." "Perhaps." Before she could finish, Lucas Miller snapped angrily. "Shut up. What business is it of yours?" This was the first time he had ever spoken to Zoe Han so harshly. Zoe Han was startled into silence, her mouth agape. Lucas Miller seemed to snap out of it, quickly lowering his voice and whispering to her, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Go wait outside. I don't want to involve you in our business." Zoe Han's eyes were red, and she felt wronged. But she was also smart enough to know not to provoke Lucas Miller right now. So she obediently left the room. After she left, Lucas Miller exhaled deeply. Just as he was about to speak, His gaze suddenly fell to the ground, and his voice softened. Your foot is injured? Why didn't you say anything? I'll get a band-aid. Saying this, he walked toward the bookshelf beside him. But I knew it was just a way for him to change the subject. Every time we talked about something he didn't want to hear, he would interrupt our conversation by pretending to care about me. In the past, I always softened my heart, immersing myself in the illusion that he still cared about me. The original topic was buried deep in my mind before I knew it. But those contradictions remained unresolved, festering in my heart, only to be dug up one day in an even uglier form. Where are the band-aids? I remember there were some before. Lucas Miller muttered to himself as he searched through the bookshelf. But he seemed to have forgotten that the last time he entered my room was 2 years ago. After I fell ill with a fever of 40 degrees. He went out on a date with Zoe Han instead. To make it easier for me to access them, I had already moved the medicine cabinet to a different location. Lucy Shaw. Why are there so many fewer things in your room? Lucas Miller finally noticed something was off. I didn't hide it from him, I sold the house. I've already found a buyer. And the house will be handed over in 2 days. You should find someone to move your things out tomorrow as well. Lucas Miller froze, about to get angry. But then he seemed to think of something and suddenly laughed. Don't be ridiculous. This house also belongs to me. Without my signature. How could you sell it? All right. Lucy Shaw. I know you're angry. I'll have Zoe leave right now. Don't make a scene. Okay? He still didn't believe me. I picked up the sales contract from the table and handed it to him. At the bottom is a power of attorney you signed. The agent said this is sufficient. Oh. Right. The power of attorney was signed on the day Zoe Han was driving under the influence. You should remember that. But even if you don't, it's still legally binding. Lucas Miller took the contract and flipped to the last page, his body suddenly stiffening. After a half-second pause, he suddenly screamed at me hysterically. Without my permission? Who gave you the right to sell the house? I snorted derisively. I don't want a single cent from the company. But this house was bought with my own money. It's only fair that I have the right to dispose of it. Besides, I remember you bought Zoe Han a new house in the suburbs earlier. You're not homeless, you can move there. Both emotionally and logically. There's no problem with me selling the house. Lucas Miller was speechless, his face pale. I thought he would agree to the breakup without further ado. But to my surprise, he forced himself to calm down and explain to me in a low voice. That house was a gift I wanted to give you. Not Zoe Han. I only put her name on it to give her a sense of belonging. If you mind, I can remove her name later. We've been together for so many years, how can we just break up like this? Lucy Shaw. I know you're upset right now. Calm down first. And we'll talk about this tomorrow. After saying that, he turned and left. This was always the case. Every time we had an irreconcilable argument, he would put on an act of still loving me, leaving me to calm down on my own. Every time, I would convince myself to believe in him, not to act impulsively, then take the initiative to reach out to him, apologize, and make up. At first, I truly loved him, but over time, I realized his heart wasn't with me anymore. Yet I couldn't bear to let go of the years we'd spent together, always hoping that if I endured the pain, things would eventually get better. But after all this time, nothing has improved. It was all just my one-sided wishful thinking. He probably thought I'd keep letting him manipulate me like before. But he was wrong. This relationship has been worn down by repeated disappointments. After Lucas Miller left, I swept up the broken ceramic pieces on the floor and tended to my wounds. When I went out again, Lucas Miller and Zoe Han had already left. Leftover food was scattered on the table, and a half-burned candle lay extinguished on the floor. Housework had always been my responsibility. I never let Lucas Miller lift a finger. Over time, he had grown accustomed to it. I was too lazy to clean up, thinking that I would do it before moving out anyway. So I planned to hire a cleaner the next day and rest after washing up. However, the next morning when I stepped out of the room, I saw that the room had already been cleaned, and Lucas Miller was standing in the kitchen, busy with something. "I was just about to come get you." Lucas Miller was wearing an apron around his waist for the first time, smiling at me with a calm expression, as if nothing had happened the day before. I've already cleaned the house and disinfected everything. In the past, I would have pretended not to notice the water stains left from mopping the floor or the watermarks on the glass, praising him generously and giving him emotional validation. But now, I scoffed and gave a half-hearted "oh." Lucas Miller noticed my cold demeanor and looked disappointed. But he quickly smiled again and walked out the door with 2 breakfast plates. "I just made these. Try some." I glanced at them. They were 2 cheeseburgers. They looked decent enough. To be honest, this was probably the first breakfast Lucas Miller had ever made for me, and it was something I should have been touched by. But he seemed to have forgotten. "I'm allergic to cheese." Lucas Miller's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly said, "I'll make another one. Don't bother. Let's part ways peacefully. It's better for both of us." At the company dinner, he clearly remembered that Zoe Han didn't like lamb, ginger, or garlic. But he didn't remember that I had accidentally eaten cheese and had a severe allergic reaction that landed me in the hospital. Love and not love are very clear. But Lucas Miller didn't seem to think so. He frowned impatiently. "There's no such thing as holding a grudge overnight between spouses. Lucy Shaw. I've already humbled myself to do these things. Why are you being so picky? And I'm busy with company matters every day. Forgetting things is pretty normal, isn't it?" I nodded. Breaking up is also normal. Lucas Miller finally lost his temper, slamming the plate down on the table with a loud crash. He glared at me with a frown, then lost all patience and stormed out. This was the beginning of our Cold War. I sighed helplessly, then called the cleaning service to help clean up, packing all of Lucas Miller's belongings and sending them to his suburban address. Normally, I would have helped him pack his luggage, so it didn't take much time to finish everything. The house was handed over smoothly at the agreed time. Lucas Miller seemed to finally realize that my breakup wasn't a threat. He sent me a text message mocking me. But when he saw I didn't respond, he started posting frequent photos of himself and Zoe Han on his social media. During this time, I was busy with onboarding procedures. And by the time I noticed, there were several important notifications on my phone. I realized he had posted that he went to the zoo with Zoe Han today. Tomorrow, he posted that he went hot air ballooning with Zoe Han. The day after that, he posted about how well the company was doing and how he was taking Zoe Han to Hawaii for a reward. In the photos, he even deliberately showed off the matching couple's rings on his middle fingers. The caption read, "Those who are loved are always fearless. But no one knows that only children who don't cry deserve sweets." I know he's doing this on purpose to provoke me. He's waiting for me to get jealous, to get angry, to beg him to come back. Then he'll come back with a series of conditions, acting like he's doing me a favor. But I don't care anymore. Just as I was about to exit the app, I accidentally liked one of his posts, worried it might cause trouble. I quickly unfollowed him and removed him from my close friends list. I went back to focusing on my work. Thanks to my arrival, some projects at my friend's company have become more refined. The business negotiations also went smoothly, and we secured a cooperation project with profits exceeding 100 million. That day, as my friend and I were preparing to meet for the contract discussion, Lucas Miller unexpectedly sent me a message. It was a photo. I opened it in confusion. What caught my eye was a prenatal examination report with Zoe Han's name on it. How did I feel? The next second, Lucas Miller sent another message. I didn't respond. Lucas Miller quickly added, just kidding. The report is fake. But be honest with yourself, when you saw that pregnancy test report, didn't you feel a pang of jealousy? Can you really accept that Zoe Han is pregnant with my child? I found it somewhat amusing. But I didn't notice it earlier, it only dawned on me after he said it. Usually, when I saw him with other girls, I couldn't help but feel jealous, getting angry, blushing, and my heart racing. But now, when I looked at myself in the mirror, my expression was calm and composed as always. Even the heart rate on my smartwatch told me that I had completely accepted the fact that Lucas Miller belonged to someone else. I didn't want to reply to him anymore. But thinking about Zoe Han's provocation earlier, I didn't want to cause any more trouble. So I decided to tell him out of kindness. Since you already have a new girlfriend, don't bring up topics without boundaries. It might be misunderstood by your new girlfriend. A few minutes after sending the message, Lucas Miller's window flashed back and forth for a few minutes as he typed. Finally, he replied. Lucy Shaw. Just keep pretending. I'll see how long you can keep it up. If you didn't still love me, why would you be so concerned about me? Don't think I don't know you've been monitoring me and secretly liked my posts. I found it somewhat amusing. Lucas Miller had never paid attention to me before, let alone notice such details. It seemed that during his time with Zoe Han, he had truly changed. The man who hadn't changed in 9 years with me had changed for Zoe Han. Before I could say anything, Lucas Miller continued, nothing has happened between me and Zoe during this time. She's willing to cooperate with me on this because she wants us to get back together. For her sake, I'm giving you one last chance. I gave a faint smile. No. Thanks. I hung up the phone immediately. He might still think I'll come back because of his provocation. But it doesn't matter. Time will make him realize that I'm truly done with him. I also knew that his current attempts to win me back weren't because he still loved me, but because he was worried that if people found out we'd broken up, they'd gossip about it. Being ambiguous with Zoe Han was one thing. Breaking up with me because of Zoe Han was another. I didn't bother with him anymore and focused on my career. That evening, my friend and I successfully closed the deal on our collaboration project. My friend was very happy and took me to meet several other bosses in the same industry. Upon meeting them, my friend directly introduced me as her partner, and the others treated me with great respect. I felt both honored and a bit overwhelmed. Although I had accompanied Lucas Miller to meet bosses in the same circle before, Lucas Miller had always made it clear that I wasn't his partner, but rather an inexperienced employee. Over time, those bosses stopped respecting me and sometimes even asked me to run errands for them. But I couldn't blame him. Lucas Miller may have been at fault, but hadn't I also enabled him in the past? After a few drinks, we hit it off and felt like we had known each other for years. At some point, one of the female bosses quietly asked me, Lucy Shaw, have you offended someone? I just found out you've been added to our industry's blacklist. To prove it, she showed me the records. This was internal industry information. To avoid trouble, the higher-ups circulated a list of people with bad reputations or prior issues. My name and photo were clearly listed there. The reasons listed were disobedient to management, unable to cooperate with colleagues, overly jealous, and of poor character. I didn't need to guess who had written it. Seeing my silence, the female boss spoke up without hesitation. Sister, I know you're not that kind of person. Someone must be targeting you. Don't worry. I'll remove your name right now. After saying that, she deleted my information without a second thought. Seeing this, I thanked her, but couldn't help but smile bitterly inside. Now that I have friends to help me, it's okay. But I can't imagine what would happen to an ordinary job seeker who ends up on this list. Where would they go from there? It's not that the blacklist is bad. Having such a list would indeed save many companies a lot of trouble. However, no company will bother to verify the authenticity of this blacklist. Everyone will make decisions based on stereotypes. Those who are wrongly accused will only become more discouraged. After repeated setbacks, even the most talented individuals will eventually lose their courage to move forward. What will they do then? Our friends, seeing us still chatting, drunkenly hooked their arms around our shoulders and dragged us back, urging us to keep drinking. When the party ended, my friend and I saw everyone off to their cars. My friend went to call his girlfriend, while I stood at the hotel entrance waiting for the ride-hailing service to pick me up. After waiting for a while, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, Lucy Shaw. What are you doing here?" I turned around and saw Zoe Hahn and Lucas Miller not far away. Zoe Hahn was holding Lucas Miller's arm, their bodies very close together, looking like a couple deeply in love. Seeing me, Zoe Hahn snorted and whispered to Lucas Miller. "CEO Miller. I know. Lucy Shaw must be here to find you. You two go ahead and talk. I'll step aside for a moment." After saying that, she pretended to leave, but I could tell she had no intention of going anywhere. Sure enough, Lucas Miller wrapped his arm around her, then pressed his chest against hers, deliberately showing off their intimacy to me. "You're not an outsider. Why are you avoiding us?" After saying that, Lucas Miller gave me a smug glance. "Aren't you the one who didn't want the opportunity? Then why are you still here? But let me tell you, it's too late now. Lucy Shaw, you don't have a chance." His attitude was arrogant and domineering. It was completely different from the considerate manner he displayed in front of Zoe Hahn. I knew he had misunderstood. I explained in a calm voice. "I came here to have dinner with a friend. We're about to leave." "You came here to have dinner with a friend?" Zoe Hahn repeated the sentence and burst out laughing. "Sorry, Lucy Shaw. I couldn't help it. But I never thought that now that you're out of a job, you'd be willing to be so extravagant and come to this kind of hotel with your friends." I could tell she was mocking me for lying and trying to put on airs. "Lucy Shaw, I never thought you'd end up like this." Lucas Miller's gaze toward me grew more disdainful. Seeing this, I didn't feel like explaining anymore. Anyway, he wouldn't believe me, and explaining would be pointless, just a waste of breath. Seeing I wasn't speaking, Lucas Miller assumed I was feeling guilty. He grew even more convinced that Zoe Hahn's judgment was correct. He sneered. "After leaving me, you should know how hard it is now. Do you regret it now?" I found it amusing. It seemed he didn't know I had already started working at my friend's company. Well, he had never been interested in my whereabouts anyway. It was normal not to know after breaking up. Just as I was about to say something, he sighed deeply again. "I didn't want to forgive you. But we were once a couple, and I'm not completely without feelings for you. Plus, you went out of your way to come all this way. I'll give you another chance. Make the most of it." Hearing this, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and glance at Zoe Hahn. She had obviously just found out about Lucas Miller's decision and looked a bit flustered. But she dared not say anything. And after a long pause, she stammered, "CEO Miller, you need to think this through. Getting back together isn't a good idea." I almost laughed. It seemed like the two of them hadn't discussed this beforehand. Lucas Miller ignored Zoe Hahn, sneered, and continued to me, "Did you hear that? Lucy Shaw? Actually, many friends have been advising me not to get back together with you and to cut my losses. They all think you're no longer worthy of me. Do you know how many people have been urging me to break up with you every day? I've only been tolerating you out of consideration for our relationship. I really don't know what you've been thinking or who you've been listening to that made you break up with me. Everyone knows how happy you are, but you're the only one who doesn't appreciate it." Lucas Miller continued to ramble on. Yes. He is now worth far more than me. So he has repeatedly emphasized that our relationship is unequal, and that he is with me out of consideration for our past feelings. In the past, I always brushed off his words as playful banter between us. But later I realized he was serious. In his eyes, there was no reason for us to break up. It was about interests, old feelings, and charity, but there was no love. Just as I was about to say something, a friend's voice interrupted us. Lucy Shaw. Who are these two? Seeing my friend approach, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. After thinking for a moment, I replied, former colleagues. We just happened to run into each other. Earlier, Lucas Miller had taken me out and didn't want to introduce me as his girlfriend, often saying I was his colleague. I thought he would be satisfied with that. But to my surprise, his expression grew even darker upon hearing those words. I ignored him and continued introducing the two. This is my friend. As I mentioned, I came here to eat with my friend. But for some reason, his expression remained unpleasant. Zoe Han, who was standing nearby, noticed first and smiled at me. I didn't expect Lucy Shaw to actually have friends who would invite you here for dinner. Your friend seems pretty wealthy. What does she do? Where does she work? My friend furrowed her brows and whispered to me. How can you tell she's a gold digger just from the way she speaks? I smiled faintly. It's nothing. You'll get used to it. My friend didn't say much either, but she could tell that Zoe Han wasn't here with good intentions. She casually replied, just a small business. Nothing to write home about. Seeing this, Zoe Han grew even more smug, snorting derisively. Her eyes filled with disdain as she looked at my friend. Business must be tough these days, right? You can't just waste hard-earned money like that. My friend quickly noticed something off about her words and didn't respond. She turned to me and whispered, "What's going on? Do you two have a beef?" I didn't hide anything from her and whispered back in a voice only the two of us could hear. The person next to her is my ex-boyfriend. And she's his current girlfriend. My friend already knew about my tough startup with Lucas Miller. After I came to find her, I didn't hide the fact that we had broken up or the reason why. My friend snorted, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" She then turned to Zoe Han and smiled. "From what you're saying, you're not earning honest money? What kind of work do you do? You don't look like someone with much potential. You can't be just using men for money. Can you?" You. Zoe Han was furious and tried to attack. But Lucas Miller stopped her. "Stop it. Lucy Shaw. I don't feel like playing games with you anymore. I know what you're upset about. I promise you, if you're willing to get back together, I'll restore your position in the company and give you a 10% stake. That should satisfy you, right? 10%? Before I could think further, my friend burst out laughing. "Sorry. I've already poached her to our company and given her a 40% stake." Lucas Miller's face turned pale for a moment. But then he seemed to think of something else and glared at me coldly. "Lucy Shaw. Think carefully. The strength of the two companies is different. This number alone doesn't mean anything." He was clearly implying that my friend's company was far behind his. Initially, my friend's company was indeed weaker. But the key issue was a lack of technology. Now the technology is gradually improving, and they've even secured a project worth hundreds of millions. The company's strength has already surpassed Lucas Miller's. Moreover, I don't believe his company will continue to improve under the current trends. On the contrary, his management style and his favoritism towards Zoe Han make me think that problems are inevitable. But I didn't bother to say any of this, as he wouldn't listen anyway. My friend didn't bother to argue with him either. "Has the ride arrived?" she asked me casually, ignoring Lucas Miller. I was just about to check the order when a person in a ride-sharing uniform hurried over and said to me, "Sir, I'm the ride-sharing driver you requested. Where's the car? My car is too flashy. Just take yours. My friend nodded toward me. I didn't think much of it and handed the car keys to the driver. In less than 2 minutes, she nervously drove the high-end Porsche to our side. Sir, this car is so cool. It must be expensive. I snapped back to reality and turned to look. Zoe Han was staring at the car, her eyes sparkling. Lucas Miller looked deep in thought, unsure of what he was thinking, but his expression wasn't great either. My friend gave me a smug smile and replied, "Not expensive. Just over 2 million. It's a company bonus. By the way, my sister is still looking for a driver. I think you're a good fit. Would you be interested in working for us? $2,000 a month." The driver was overwhelmed and hurriedly asked, "Really? Of course. If you don't believe me, I'll send you the contract right now." "All right. I'll work hard." My friend and the driver were chatting enthusiastically. Lucas Miller gave me a cold stare from the side and turned to leave. Zoe Han quickly followed after him. Over here, my friend and the driver had already signed the contract. I was a bit surprised. "You really signed it?" "Of course. We've been planning this all along. You're our technical backbone. We'll need to drink when we go out for business. And we can't keep hiring a driver every time." "But isn't the salary a bit too high? This price is already far above the market rate." At Lucas Miller's place, my salary was only $15,000. My friend seemed to know I'd ask that, patted my shoulder, and said, "It's not high. After all, when you're drunk, the driver is the one holding your life in their hands." Seeing she was set on it, I didn't try to persuade her further. Over the next period, we focused entirely on the project. Occasionally, when I had some free time, I noticed that Lucas Miller, who had been constantly updating his status recently, had suddenly gone quiet. Even Zoe Han had calmed down and stopped provoking me. I guessed it was because of what happened last time. I had thought that after that incident, Lucas Miller would give up and cut ties with me completely. But who would have thought that on this day, while we were busy wrapping up the project, a friend suddenly approached me and said mysteriously, "Lucas Miller just called me." Before I could ask more, the friend continued seriously, "He should be contacting you soon. No matter what choice you make, I'll support you. Don't worry." Of course. I still hope you won't be swayed. After saying these ambiguous words, my friend left. I was completely confused. However, I didn't think much of it and continued focusing on my work. It wasn't until noon that I received a call from Lucas Miller. As soon as I answered, he didn't come on aggressively like usual but was unusually quiet. So quiet that I even thought he had hung up. But when I looked at the screen, it was still connected. "Lucy Shaw. Stop messing around. Can we make up?" After a long pause, Lucas Miller's slightly hoarse voice came through. I found it a little funny. Did he still think I was messing around? I didn't say anything, and Lucas Miller continued. "I called your friend earlier. She said that she also wanted you to start a business with her back then. But you still chose me. I never realized you had made so many sacrifices for me. I admit that since Zoe Han joined the company, I've neglected you a lot. But we've been together for 10 years and we're already talking about marriage. Does our relationship really have to end because of these past 10 months? His voice choked up, as if he couldn't bring himself to speak. I paused, thinking back to the past. Over the past 10 years, our life together may have been ordinary, but we've always relied on each other. When faced with difficulties, we encouraged each other. When faced with thorns, we endured the pain and walked side by side. Once, to secure an investment, I was forced to drink 3 bottles of white wine. By the time the event ended, I could barely walk. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, I saw Lucas Miller crying, one hand supporting me, the other struggling to dial 120. When I woke up in the hospital, seeing his exhausted appearance, I realized he had stayed by my side for 2 days and 2 nights without rest. During my 7-day hospital stay, he juggled company matters while tending to my needs. At that moment, he must have truly loved me. As my thoughts drifted back, I was about to speak when Zoe Han suddenly spoke on the other end of the line. Lucy Shaw, please forgive CEO Miller. I'm sorry for the misunderstandings these past days, but I truly meant no harm. If you're offended, I'll resign tomorrow and never show my face before you again. This time, Lucas Miller didn't stop her, as if tacitly agreeing to her words. I felt a mix of emotions. Hearing those words, it felt like a tragic separation of two people's feelings. I felt more like the third wheel in their relationship. What's the point of breaking up? What's the point of resigning? After that, Zoe Han would become his unattainable white moonlight. Over time, their feelings would only grow stronger, and eventually, they would explode in an even more intense way than now. I scoffed but still said, I can agree, but on one condition. What is it? Hearing Lucas Miller's desperate tone, I raised the corner of my lips slightly. Give me half of the company's shares and half of your assets. I knew Lucas Miller wouldn't agree. He was well aware that the shares and assets were the reason Zoe Han was willing to be with him. Sure enough, Lucas Miller remained silent for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, Zoe Han couldn't hold back any longer and said angrily, Lucy Shaw, your condition is too much. Do you know how hard it was for CEO Miller to build the company to this size? You just want to take half of the company's assets with a few words? Don't you think that's a bit much? I didn't even bother to call her out on it. I replied calmly, Lucas Miller, we're all adults. We should know that there's no such thing as a free lunch. You want to get what you want without losing anything. Why should you be the only one to benefit from that? Make your choice. I'll give you 3 days to think it over. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I thought Lucas Miller would give up, but to my surprise, he called again in the evening. He said half was too much and asked if he could have 20%. I told him straight away that half was half, and I wouldn't agree to anything less. If he couldn't give that, he shouldn't call again. However, this incident left me feeling a bit puzzled. Lucas Miller seemed to genuinely not want to break up with me. But why? Wasn't he the one who wanted to break up in the first place? That day at the hotel, he said he was afraid others would misunderstand. But it was me who initiated the breakup, and such a reason shouldn't have driven him to this extent. However, I didn't dwell on it. Soon, the 3 days passed, and Lucas Miller never contacted me. The final stages of the project were slowly wrapping up, and on the day of the successful completion, a friend specially invited us to a celebratory banquet. At the banquet, everyone forgot the drudgery of work and let loose. By the time I got home, it was already past midnight. I had just finished washing up and was about to fall asleep when I received a call from Lucas Miller. My sleep was disturbed, and I felt annoyed and wanted to hang up. But after drinking, my vision was blurry, and I accidentally pressed the answer button. Hello. Are you Mr. Miller's girlfriend? Mr. Miller has had too much to drink here and refuses to go home. We found your phone number in his phone and are worried something might happen. Could you please come pick him up? I sobered up a bit. I'm sorry. Please find someone else. But Mr. Miller insists that you come pick him up. He also said that if anything happens to him and you don't come, you will be held responsible. The person on the other end sounded urgent. I couldn't help but laugh. I sat up and said, then send me your location. The person on the other end seemed relieved. After hanging up, they immediately added my contact information and sent me a location. I glanced at it. Then I dialed the police. After explaining the situation and location to the dispatcher, I put my phone on silent and fell asleep. When I woke up, I found that Lucas Miller had called me dozens of times and sent dozens of messages. From being shocked that I had chosen to call the police, to being furious and accusing me of being heartless, thinking only about money and not caring about feelings, to finally breaking down and asking me why I had done this to him. He had only made a small mistake that anyone could have made, and he hadn't betrayed me in any substantial way. Why was I being so ruthless? Before I could finish reading the messages, his phone rang again. I was about to reject the call, but then I thought, even if I rejected it now, the matter hadn't been clarified, and he would probably keep harassing me. With that in mind, I pressed the answer button. His voice was hoarse, and his tone was still low. Lucy Shaw. I've thought it through. I admit you've won. I can't live without you. I'll give you half of the shares, and I'll split my assets with you. Come back. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at the time. It had already been 5 days. Sorry. The 3-day deadline has passed. I've changed my mind. Lucy Shaw. You. Lucas Miller was about to speak but suddenly coughed violently. After a long while, the coughing subsided. His voice was hoarse. How did you become like this? I smiled but didn't respond. Back then, he was the same. He often delayed payments, deducted my bonuses and wages, and gave the projects to Zoe Han. Now I'm just treating him the way he treated me. Sure enough. You don't know how it hurts until it happens to you. He seemed to understand my intentions and finally realized that I wasn't after his property. He gave a self-deprecating laugh. Lucy Shaw. I'm starting to not recognize you anymore. After saying that, he coughed violently again, breathing heavily, sounding very painful. I wanted to ask him what was wrong, but I feared it might make him think I was concerned. After thinking it over, I remained silent. But he seemed to know what I was thinking and spoke to himself. I have a fever. Lucy Shaw. I'm in our house right now. I just bought it back not long ago. I want to know, when you had a fever and I wasn't there, were you as miserable as I am now? I didn't answer. And he continued, all the drawings you made for me are gone. I searched the entire house and couldn't find any. Lucy Shaw. Did you put them away? Or did you throw them away? He sounded like a child, talking non-stop. His voice trembled. His tone grew increasingly hurt. There was rustling sounds from across the room. I guess he was rummaging through drawers and cabinets. I sighed. I burned them all. Lucas Miller paused, then burst into laughter. As he laughed, his voice trailed off, and soft sobs could be heard from across the room. The room was now filled with memories of our life together, but I couldn't find a single trace of our former life. How could you be so heartless? You sold the house without a second thought, cleaned it so thoroughly, and left so abruptly. What am I supposed to do now? I've already removed Zoe Han's name from the suburban house. I wanted to make amends. But why won't you even give me a chance to do so? The sobbing grew louder. His voice was already hoarse. In the past, I would have felt heartbroken. I couldn't bear to see him sad or crying. But now I know clearly that he doesn't realize he's wrong. It's just because he's sick, and his emotions are more fragile. If given another chance, he might not choose a different path. Don't hold on. Let Zoe Han take you to the hospital. I have to go to work. I'll hang up now. After saying that, I didn't respond and hung up the phone. When I decided to let go, I had no intention of looking back. Whether he's doing well or not now has nothing to do with me. I got up, washed up, and drove to the company. As soon as I arrived at the entrance, I noticed the lively atmosphere inside, filled with joy. Before I could ask, my friend grabbed my hand excitedly and said with a beaming smile, "The client for our previous project has gone live." And within 2 hours, it had 8 million views. They're very satisfied and have decided to sign a long-term contract with us. This client is well known in the industry, so securing a long-term project with them is truly an incredible achievement. My friend gave everyone on the project a raise that month, and everyone's motivation skyrocketed. I used the bonus I received and the money from selling my old house to buy a new place here. This time, I chose the house according to my preferences. It's located in a quiet area away from the city center, with a large lake nearby. The view from the windows is absolutely stunning. I also took some time to design the interior decoration plans. The previous house was also designed by me. At the time, Lucas Miller didn't like the designs created by others, but I happened to understand his preferences. So I enrolled in a 2-month course to learn how to draw interior design plans. Under Lucas Miller's meticulous scrutiny, we made numerous revisions until the final design was finalized. Without boasting, the house truly aligns with Lucas Miller's taste. So when he told me he had purchased the house, I didn't feel it was out of nostalgia. It seemed more like he simply found it comfortable. I also designed a comfortable interior style for myself and shared the blueprints with a reliable construction team. Sometimes after work, I would go to the house to take a look and lend a hand. After a few days of running back and forth, I was exhausted, and one day I accidentally injured my leg while climbing the stairs. After resting for a few days, I had to reduce the frequency of my visits. My friends urged me to rest and offered to oversee the construction, but I was still looking forward to seeing the finished house. That day, I couldn't resist going to the new house after work. Upon arriving at the underground garage, I spotted a familiar figure standing beside the car. Lucas Miller was wearing a windbreaker and a mask, standing in front of the car. His complexion looked much more haggard than before, with a faint bluish tint under his eyelids. I paused for a moment before continuing toward him. "What are you doing here?" I wasn't surprised he had found his way here. His circle wasn't small, and it wouldn't take much effort for him to find out something. It was just that he hadn't bothered to spend any effort on me before. "I have something to talk to you about." His voice sounded hoarse, like he was still sick. "Let's talk in the car. I heard you bought a new house, so I came to take a look and give you my opinion." "No. Let's just talk here." I declined his offer. He seemed to have anticipated my response. His emotions didn't flare up, but his eyes grew a bit somber as he handed me the documents. "This is compensation for you. I admit that over the past decade, I've owed you a lot. Whether it was the company or the family, you've sacrificed so much, yet I never reciprocated in time. Take this contract. Consider it compensation for the past 10 years. From now on, I won't bother you anymore." I paused for a moment before taking the documents from his hand. They detailed the fines he had imposed on me at work, the projects he had taken from me, and the bonuses he had withheld, all compensated at double the original amount. There were even lists of things he felt he owed me over the past 10 years. At the end, there was a bank card with the password written on it. It was my birthday. I looked at his face suspiciously, unsure if this was his new tactic or if he had truly given up. I said I wouldn't bother you anymore. And I won't. Lucas Miller seemed to know what I was thinking and replied calmly, "I've come to terms with it. It's time for me to move on." "That's good." I nodded. I didn't refuse and took the documents and card. These were things that belonged to me all along, and I knew that only by taking them would Lucas Miller truly realize that our relationship was completely over. Sure enough, when I took them, I saw a fleeting look of sadness in Lucas Miller's eyes, but it quickly faded. "So, can I go see the new house you bought? You know I haven't been doing well since I left you. And I want to see how you've been doing since I left you. He explained. I knew it was just an excuse. Just his obsession. But I also knew his personality well. Once he decided to do something, he would see it through. Otherwise he would keep harping on it. I didn't want to get involved anymore. And besides, maybe we wouldn't see each other again anyway. It was better to draw a clean line. Let's go. I walked toward the car. But just a few steps later, Lucas Miller quickly walked up to me and led me in another direction. Let me drive you. Your leg was injured a couple of days ago. And it's not convenient for you to drive. I didn't refuse. But I didn't expect him to even know about my injury. If it had been before, I would have been happy. But unfortunately, we can't go back to the past. The value of something after it's lost is worthless. I didn't say anything and followed Lucas Miller to his car. He opened the passenger door. And just as I was about to get in, I saw a small doll in the passenger seat, securely fastened with a seatbelt, with a label attached that read Zoe Hahn. There was also a line of small text. When I'm not around, let this doll keep CEO Miller company. There was also a playful expression drawn on it. Lucas Miller had probably forgotten about this. And upon seeing the doll, his expression grew slightly awkward. It's okay. I'll sit in the back. I instinctively reached out to close the door. But Lucas Miller stopped me, yanked the doll from the passenger seat, and tossed it to the back. His movements were swift and decisive. I was momentarily taken aback. Zoe Hahn had always enjoyed subtly flaunting Lucas Miller's affection for her. She either made Lucas Miller wear her hair ribbon on his wrist, placed items with her name on them in his office, or even had things belonging to Zoe Hahn at home. She took every opportunity to make me jealous and push me away. At first, I didn't understand her motives. I argued with Lucas Miller. And once, in a fit of anger, I threw something out. But that time, Lucas Miller slapped me hard across the face. Lucy Shaw. Have you lost your mind? Young people are more immature. But they mean well. I stayed here because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Why are you so jealous? Don't you know that being so petty makes you look cheap? That time I was devastated. But I gradually realized that this was actually Zoe Hahn's plan. She wanted to use this method to make me leave on my own. You don't have to do this. We're not together anymore anyway. Even if she's here, it doesn't matter. I said to Lucas Miller in a calm voice. Lucas Miller bit his lip. I know you won't believe me. And I know what you're thinking. But I can tell you clearly that even if we break up, I won't be with Zoe Hahn. I've said it before, I don't have any feelings for Zoe Hahn. I only helped her because seeing her reminds me of you when you were alone and helpless. I couldn't help but snort in derision. His righteous words might have convinced me. But did he forget that when he tilted the umbrella of mercy toward Zoe Hahn, I was just as helpless as I was back then? There's no point in saying this. Let's go, I said softly. Lucas Miller seemed to think of something and said, I'm going to let Zoe Hahn. Clang. Before he could finish, the sound of a lunchbox hitting the ground echoed behind him. Immediately after, Zoe Hahn's voice rang out, filled with intense resentment. CEO Miller. Aren't you sick? Why are you here? I turned around and saw Zoe Hahn standing motionless not far away. Her expression surprised and slightly hurt. At her feet lay a deformed thermos and spilled porridge. She looked quite disheveled. Whether it was genuine emotion or an act, I couldn't tell. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at the person beside me. Lucas Miller's face turned red as if he had been caught doing something wrong, and he panicked for a moment. But he quickly regained his composure. Seeing this, I found it amusing. His words earlier were clearly just wishful thinking, but his true feelings were obviously different. Why are you here? Lucas Miller asked calmly. Zoe Han spoke with a tone of grievance. You were so sick the other day. I was worried. So I made some porridge to continue taking care of you. But when I arrived at your building, I saw you had already left in your car. So I followed you out of concern. But now it seems like I wasn't needed after all. As she spoke, she knelt down dejectedly to clean up the thermos on the ground. She looked as though she had suffered a great blow. Lucas Miller's expression was subtle, as if he wanted to say something. But Zoe Han interrupted him. CEO Miller. I understand. I also hope you and Lucy Shaw can get back together. It's only right for you to be good to her. It's my fault for being so thoughtless. You two go ahead. I'll clean this up and leave. As she spoke, she deliberately glanced at the stuffed bear thrown on the backseat of the car, lowered her head, and continued cleaning the stains from the spilled porridge on the ground. Seeing how understanding she was, Lucas Miller seemed to be struggling internally. He took a step forward but stopped. You go back first. I'll have someone clean it up later. No need. Zoe Han shook her head. CEO Miller. You don't need to worry about me. I'm not the little girl who needed your care anymore. When you were sick recently, I took care of you for several days. So I know how to clean up. Mentioning taking care of her, Lucas Miller's expression clearly showed some guilt. But he forced himself to look away. Get in the car. He opened the car door. I didn't get in the car and told him proactively. I'll drive myself. Go take care of her. We've already broken up. There's no need to put on a show in front of me. After saying this, I clearly saw a flash of surprise in Zoe Han's eyes. She looked over at us. The words she spoke, however, were filled with innocence. You two broke up? Why? Is Lucy Shaw still angry with me? Did I come at the wrong time? It has nothing to do with you. We broke up peacefully. Lucas Miller finished speaking and looked at me. I said I'd take you there. No matter what happens today, I'll keep my promise. As soon as he finished speaking, Zoe Han suddenly let out a muffled groan, clutched her chest, and collapsed to the ground. Zoe, what's wrong? Lucas Miller's expression changed, and he rushed forward without hesitation to help her up. His eyes filled with concern. Zoe Han lay on the ground, pale and speechless. Lucas Miller grew even more anxious, helping her up and quickly walking to the car. Just as he was about to place her in the back seat, he suddenly thought of me and hesitated, glancing at me. I knew what he was thinking. Human life comes first. Take her to the hospital. Lucas Miller bit his lip, seeming to finally make up his mind. Wait for me at the new house. I'll take her to the hospital and come find you afterward. After saying that, he carried Zoe Han inside, got into the driver's seat, and drove off, watching the car speed away. I remained calm inside. I didn't know if Lucas Miller had noticed, but I was certain that Zoe Han was faking it. But that had nothing to do with me. I was just about to drive to the new house when I received a call from a friend. It turned out that the second project had gone viral as soon as it was released, attracting a large number of fans. Now some foreign companies also wanted to discuss cooperation with us. My friend wanted me to accompany her on a business trip at short notice. I agreed without hesitation and turned the car around and headed for the airport. The plan was very sudden. So as soon as we landed, we rushed to organize the proposal, to ensure smooth communication with the other party. We also prepared a translated version. We knew very little about foreign companies. So to avoid any mistakes, we had to work against the clock to prepare, detailing every advantage of our company. My friend and I worked so hard that we only slept 4 hours a day, and sometimes we could even fall asleep while standing up. Fortunately, our efforts paid off. After the meeting, the translator informed us that the other party found our preparation thorough and the proposal comprehensive, and agreed to collaborate with us. My friend and I were overjoyed and hugged each other tightly. That night, We finally got a good night's sleep. In the days that followed, I hadn't had time to check my messages. And it was only then that I noticed Lucas Miller had sent me several messages and made numerous calls. That was when I had just arrived abroad. And Lucas Miller told me he was already downstairs at his new apartment. He asked why I wasn't there. I didn't expect him to actually come looking for me. After all, every time something related to Zoe Han came up, he would dive right in and completely forget about my existence. After thinking about it, I didn't respond. So much time had passed, I doubted he even cared anymore. Besides, we weren't together anymore, so there was no point in talking about it. My friends and I traveled around the country for a while, visited some local attractions, and then returned home. By the time we arrived at the airport, it was already late at night. After saying goodbye to my friends, we each went home. Just as I lay down on my big bed, there was a loud knocking on the door. The sound echoed loudly in the empty hallway, as if someone was venting their anger, thinking it was an enemy coming to cause trouble. I opened the door angrily, but as soon as I opened it, a figure rushed toward me, and I couldn't dodge in time, stumbling backward several steps. The strong smell of alcohol mixed with a familiar fragrance hit my nose. Who else could it be but Lucas Miller? I felt a bit helpless. What are you doing here again? Didn't we say it was over? Lucas Miller belched. Yes. It's over. I'm with Zoe Han now. Are you happy? He looked at me with a dejected expression. Perhaps he was hoping to see a trace of sorrow or tension on my face. Or some other emotion. But I disappointed him. The fact that he was with Zoe Han was something I had anticipated. I didn't care about his love life. Then why did you come here? Drinking so much in the middle of the night, does your girlfriend know? I'll call her and have her come pick you up. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I took out my phone and was about to call Zoe Han. But Lucas Miller suddenly grabbed my phone and threw it across the room. It shattered into pieces with a loud crash. Don't you feel anything at all? Do you know that I waited for you all night? But you stood me up. You even flew abroad to avoid me. He sneered, pointing at me and swaying his body. Lucy Shaw, you're a big liar. I regret ever being with you. If I'd known you were so heartless, we should have broken up long ago. He shouted almost hysterically. I was worried it might disturb the neighbors. But I was also afraid that closing the door would make things even worse. Fortunately, Zoe Han rushed over at that moment. She glared at me angrily, then clung to Lucas Miller's arm in a pitiful manner and pleaded. Lucas, you've had too much to drink. Let me take you home, okay? Seeing Zoe Han, Lucas Miller seemed to regain some of his composure. After calming down a bit, he gave me another intense look before turning around and slowly descending the stairs with Zoe Han's support. After that, I rarely heard anything about Lucas Miller. Zoe Han occasionally posted sweet moments from their daily life, but these posts were usually deleted within minutes. Soon after, Zoe Han's account also went dormant. However, according to friends, Lucas Miller's company seemed to be struggling during this period. Due to his neglect, internal turmoil erupted within the company, and coupled with Zoe Han's bullying behavior, a large number of employees had already resigned. Lucas Miller tried to stop the situation from escalating, but it was already too late. Some colleagues who were on good terms with us even reached out to me and my friends. They were all former employees of my company who had contributed greatly to its success. My friends and I decided to keep them on without hesitation. From them, I also heard some details about Lucas Miller's private life. Apparently, he and Zoe Han frequently argued, sometimes even shouting at each other in front of everyone in the office. At first, Zoe Han was very supportive of Lucas Miller, even apologizing proactively. But after a few incidents, she dared to slam the table and argue with him. One time, The argument escalated to the point where Zoe Han tore up a proposal that was supposed to be submitted to the client, causing the company to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Lucas Miller, enraged, fired Zoe Han. However, they still seem to be living together, though their relationship has deteriorated further. I once saw them at the hospital. It must have turned physical. Former colleagues are sighing with relief, grateful that I had the sense to cut my losses in time. After all, Lucas Miller has changed so much from his former self, and the company's situation is far worse than before. I'm glad I got out in time, otherwise I wouldn't know how to escape that vicious cycle. I didn't say much. Lucas Miller has reached this point step by step, and every step was exactly as I had anticipated. What makes you succeed can also be your downfall. Once you take a wrong path, unless you turn back in time, you will keep making mistakes. Clearly, he no longer wants to turn back. In recent months, my friend's company has seen increasingly promising results. The projects with the foreign company were successfully completed, and new contracts were signed. In just 3 months, she achieved the goals she had originally planned for a year. Over the next few days, my friend and I discussed expanding the business. Our ideas aligned perfectly. However, after considering various factors, we decided against it. After several days of discussion, the new plan still hadn't been finalized. We even had an argument. But unlike Lucas Miller, my friend wasn't as stubborn. In the past, whenever Lucas Miller and I had conflicts at work, he would firmly tell me to follow his approach, regardless of whether it was right or wrong. Otherwise, the plan would not move forward and would have to be put on hold. My friend, on the other hand, would listen carefully and provide opposing opinions. Our conflicts only made us stronger through the process. After another heated discussion with my friend that day, I returned home exhausted. The new house we had bought was already renovated and ready to move into. I soaked myself in the bathtub, feeling much more relaxed. As I was thinking about how to proceed next, the phone rang. I wiped my hands and picked up the phone. Seeing the caller ID, I raised my eyebrows slightly. Lucas Miller. It had been nearly half a year since we last met. Since the day he was taken away by Zoe Han, we hadn't seen each other again. Sometimes we would bump into each other at business banquets, but we would just exchange a quick greeting and then turn away. However, every time we saw each other, I could feel Zoe Han's intense, malicious gaze on me. I understood that this was the current girlfriend's hostility toward the ex-boyfriend, but I couldn't understand why. After all this time, with Lucas Miller standing right beside her, she was still holding a grudge. After thinking for a moment, I didn't know what he wanted to say, so I answered the call. Lucy Shaw, the pipes in my house are broken. Could you come over and fix them for me? As soon as he answered, his voice was still hoarse, as if he had been crying. After thinking for a moment, I replied in a calm voice, "Just call a repairman." I felt a bit surprised. I didn't know why he would contact me. In the past, Lucas Miller was always busy. So to lighten his load, I specifically learned how to fix pipes and appliances. As a result, whenever something broke at home, no matter how busy I was, I would rush back to fix it. But now that we've broken up, him contacting me is really inappropriate. After a few seconds of silence, Lucas Miller spoke up. Zoe Han and I broke up 2 days ago, and the company fired her. We're not in contact anymore. I was taken aback. Before I could ask, his voice choked up. I've already called a repairman, but it's too late. Lucy Shaw, I know you don't want to see me now, but I have no other options. It's too late, and I don't know who else to turn to. I really have no other options. If you don't help me, I might really. He choked on his words. His tone was desperate. The sound of a biting wind came through the receiver. I sensed something was wrong. Where are you now? Lucas Miller paused for a moment before saying, the rooftop. I couldn't help but think back to when we first started the company. Due to poor decision-making, the company suffered massive losses. At the time, Lucas Miller was on the brink of a mental breakdown. He wrote a suicide note in the middle of the night and climbed onto the windowsill. Fortunately, I discovered him in time, otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. I had thought he was rational enough not to do something so reckless. If I hadn't known, I wouldn't have contacted him, but now that I knew he might be in danger, I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. After a moment's thought, I sighed, wait for me. I quickly changed into some clothes and drove back to this familiar place. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Lucas Miller with red, tear-stained eyes. The water pipe had burst inside the room, and the floor was flooded. I took off my shoes and walked in, only to find that the connection was loose. I used some tools to tighten it, and it was fixed quickly. The waterproofing in the neighborhood is pretty good, so there's no need to worry about flooding the floor below. Just clean up the water. After giving him a few instructions, I got up to leave. But just as I took a few steps, Lucas Miller suddenly grabbed me from behind and hugged me tightly. Lucy Shaw, do you still care about me? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come. I'm sorry. It was my fault before. I've realized my mistake. Let's go back to the way we were. Okay? I was taken aback. I pulled his hands away. You've misunderstood. I didn't come here to volunteer. The repair fee is $100. Alipay or WeChat? Lucas Miller looked at me, his thin lips trembling. After a moment, he fished his phone out of his pocket and transferred the money to me. 10,000. That's too much. I transferred the extra money back to him and showed it to him. See, we're even now. Even. He murmured the words I had just said. He gave a bitter smile. I didn't bother with him anymore and left the neighborhood. On my way out, I saw a stray cat, so I took $100 to the nearby supermarket and bought a piece of ham, placing it in front of it. Only then did I drive home. Soon I realized that Lucas Miller had let it go too. A month after the project went live, I received a lawsuit from his company. The lawsuit accused me of stealing the company's confidential documents. The evidence was also complete. In addition to the paper evidence and some transaction records, there was also a video, the one I had recorded that day when I was fixing the pipes for Lucas Miller. It had been edited, showing only the part where I was searching for tools in the room. Lucas Miller took it out of context, claiming that I was looking for confidential documents at the time. The video was somehow leaked online and went viral. The project had been gaining momentum, and many who had already disliked it seized the opportunity to spread it widely. Some bystanders were unaware of the context. However, when someone uncovered that I had jumped ship from Lucas Miller's company to work for a friend's company, and saw the contrast between the two companies' development over the past year, they began to believe the allegations and joined the chorus of criticism. Some even suggested boycotting us. I was taken to the police station. When I saw Lucas Miller, the plaintiff, I noticed his evasive gaze. I already had a rough idea of what was going on. You and Zoe Han haven't broken up, have you? The person who stole the confidential documents and nearly caused the company to go bankrupt was actually Zoe Han. That day, you lied to me about the water pipe being broken. It was all part of your plan to make me a pawn in your scheme. I remained calm and spoke softly, stating my suspicions. At the time, I noticed many unusual things in the villa. For example, there were women's slippers at the entrance, tissues with lipstick stains in the bathroom trash can, and the curtains hanging on the windows were made of the blue velvet material he hated the most. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just assuming that perhaps his personality had changed after he started dating Zoe Hahn. But now it's clear that some things never change. Lucas Miller pursed his lips. I don't want this either. Zoe is still young, she has so many opportunities. She can't ruin her life because of a momentary lapse in judgment. What about me? I scoffed. I've been with you for 9 years. Helped you so much. And now you can just destroy me without a second thought. Lucas Miller stiffened slightly and apologized to me. But I only found it amusing. What's the point? He has the freedom to love whoever he wants. To abandon me for someone else. I don't blame him. But I can't bear the fact that after everything I've done for him, he'd throw me into the abyss because of someone else's mistake. I looked at him with the last shred of hope. Are you sure you want to protect her and destroy me? After a moment, cold words slipped from his thin lips. Consider it my fault. With that, he said nothing more and turned to leave. Watching his receding figure, the last shred of affection I had for him vanished completely. He didn't know that the one being dragged into the abyss was him, not me. A week later, the trial began as scheduled. Since my friend's company had already built a reputation, and the incident had caused quite a stir, the trial was broadcast live online. Lucas Miller's lawyer presented all the evidence, pressing me relentlessly, trying to trap me with every word. Lucas Miller sat beside him, saying nothing, dared not even look at me. Zoe Hahn sat in the audience, her gaze toward me once again filled with the same smugness and defiance as before. It seemed as though they were certain I would lose. However, when my friend presented the prepared evidence one by one, both of them were speechless. At the same time, my friend also produced a recording. The conversation between Lucas Miller and Zoe Hahn was clear and distinct. Everyone in the courtroom now knew their scheme. They knew that Zoe Hahn had betrayed the company's secrets for money, causing the company to not only miss out on a development opportunity but also be forced to pay a hefty breach of contract fee. In the recording, Zoe Hahn was sobbing uncontrollably. CEO Miller, I'm still young, and I'm carrying your child. Do you really want our child to be born and discover that their mother is in prison? I know I was wrong. You can hit me, scold me, even kill me, but please don't leave me. Immediately afterward, the sound of a slap echoed through the receiver. I tend to believe that Zoe Hahn was holding Lucas Miller's wrist and hitting herself in the face. After all, she was too skilled at such tactics. Zoe Hahn sat in the audience, her smug expression gone, her face bruised and swollen. She couldn't sit still anymore. This can't be real. This recording is fake. They must have fabricated it. She flailed about trying to grab the recording, but before she could get up from the chair, she was held down by staff members. All right. I'll help you. But this is the last time. Moments later, Lucas Miller's calm and ruthless voice slowly echoed through the room. The entire audience looked on in disbelief. In the live stream, many people began to curse. I looked at Lucas Miller. He seemed to have anticipated this outcome, his face pale but without any extreme reactions. The judge turned to Lucas Miller, asking if he confirmed the authenticity of the recording and if there was any evidence to refute it. Everyone in the room watched him, waiting for his next move. Zoe Hahn's eyes were bloodshot, demanding Lucas Miller clarify the truth and admit the recording was fake. But Lucas Miller simply stood up and slowly walked toward Zoe Hahn. The staff saw that he was calm and didn't interfere much. Zoe Hahn thought he wanted to discuss a strategy with her, so she relaxed and her face lit up with excitement. She lowered her voice. Lucas, you must find a way to clarify this. Tell them the recording is fake. Stay rational. Just like before. You and Lucy Shaw have already broken up. Don't be so reluctant. Before she could finish, Lucas Miller suddenly raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. The recording is real. I admit it. I did it to help Zoe Han and maliciously slandered Lucy Shaw. His voice was clear and firm. Everyone present heard it clearly. The live stream paused briefly before quickly filling with angry comments, cursing Lucas Miller and Zoe Han. Zoe Han completely broke down, her eyes bloodshot, struggling hysterically to choke Lucas Miller's neck, before being pinned face down on the ground by staff members. Lucas Miller walked over to me, apologized, and asked why I had prepared in advance. I remained calm as always and explained the entire situation to him. Shortly after I left Lucas Miller, my friend accidentally discovered their scheme and warned me to be careful. When I went to Lucas Miller's house to fix the plumbing that day, I already knew I might fall into his trap. But I went anyway. It wasn't just because I was worried about him, but also because of the plan my friend and I had made. After the project went viral, we needed to develop faster. So at that time, my friend and I were discussing acquiring Lucas Miller's company. However, we never found the right opportunity. Lucas Miller coming to us was the perfect chance to carry out our plan. I had some hesitation at first, but his indifference toward me that day made me decide once and for all. I spoke slowly, revealing the facts he didn't know. Lucas Miller simply smiled. So that's how it was. Looking at his smile, I felt a chill run down my spine, instinctively sensing something was wrong. A bright flash caught my eye, and I saw a shiny knife blade hidden in his hand. Just as I was about to act, he swiftly turned around, raised his hand, and struck. In the next second, Zoe Han, who had been screaming hysterically moments ago, was slit across the throat, her eyes wide open, collapsing in a pool of blood. The staff hadn't expected him to do that and reacted too late to stop him. As if he'd practiced countless times, Lucas Miller slit his wrist without hesitation. As he fell, he gave me a smile. His lips seemed to form the words, "Lucy Shaw, this is the last time. I'm here to help you." The scene descended into chaos, with someone calling an ambulance. Soon, both were rushed to the hospital. Zoe Han was pronounced dead, and Lucas Miller, though severely bleeding, survived. He was arrested by the police on charges of murder and sentenced to death. After the public opinion online shifted, the friend who had originally planned to acquire Lucas Miller's company eventually decided against it after much consideration. She agreed with me that this method was too unethical. In the end, we took one step at a time and slowly moved toward our goal. However, strangely, Lucas Miller's lawyer approached me that day, stating that Lucas Miller had made a will, transferring all his shares and assets to me. After Lucas Miller's death, I gained control of all his assets. After some consideration, I changed the company's name and altered its nature. We now target all companies, assisting them in investigating the true circumstances of employees on blacklists. And our fees are very affordable, even for small companies. This was to help ordinary workers who had inadvertently ended up on the blacklist. Standing on the once glorious building, I looked down at the world below. From then on, my life was smooth sailing. Everything went well. Everything prospered.